Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It has been a while because I was pretty busy moving to Vancouver and there were lots of other things involved for not me posting tutorials. So in this tutorial I will talk about the new Arnold 5, which has pretty amazing new features, like for instance render improvements. It's got really fast, less noise, which means faster renders, a completely new standard shader, and lots of other things. And in today's video, I will be talking about the new AI standard surface shader, which is a more unified, more modern design of a shader. And I will go over a few things which should get you into creating new shaders and which should make your transition to Arnold 5 much easier. So this is the documentation for Arnold 5. Let me just pause that quickly. So this is all the new stuff, and here you can find all the attributes explained, all the options, whatever you can do is actually on this documentation page. But I would like to give you a video about it, so it's a bit more simple or more user-friendly to see how to adopt those things. So the first thing, let's head over to Maya, which is where I will do the lighting. This is a pretty simple 2-point lighting setup. There's one camera direction and one key and one strong rim light from the side. And these spheres represent mesh lights or geolights, which you can create using Arnold lights and then mesh light, but you need to select the geometry first. So currently all I did was assigning the standard surface shader to all the objects, and I did that by selecting the object, right-clicking it, assign new material, and then go to the Arnold tab and choose AI Standard Surface Shader. And I did that for a few things, for a few rubber parts, for metal parts, for generic material parts. And before we start, it is important that you work on the same Arnold version as I am, and to check that, it is in the Arnold tab, and you go to About menu, and then it is important that the Arnold core version is at least 5 point something, because starting from Arnold 5, they introduced all the new utilities and new shaders. So be sure to check that. And if you don't have them, go to the solid angle side and download the latest version. So let's just start showing you this basic how the shader looks like. So in the first section, you've got the base and then you've got the specular. So the base is mostly for diffuse and for a metallic look. So it is a bit different than the AL surface shader because the metalness slider is now incorporated into the diffuse color. So this needs to be getting used to, but when you get it, it's pretty simple actually. And then you've got your specular lobe, which is your reflection layer. And on top of that, you have a coating layer, which is like a clear coat on top of the other two layers. Then you have transmission, which is a fancy word for refraction. So if this is on, you can create glass shaders or like dirty liquids, like milk, for instance, should be possible, or like really dirty water, stuff like that. Then we have subsurface, which is mimicking light penetrating through a surface like skin or honey or like candle wax. This is things you can control with this guy. And then emission is for self illumination. So if you have a texture with a light texture map or something, you can plug this into the color, and then wherever there's a value in the map, it will generate light in the diffuse and diffuse indirect passes. The geometry is a tab where you can apply global bump mapping and global opacity maps, which is like cutout maps. And thin wall is for objects which are single-sided. For instance, if you want to create a soap bubble or you want to create paper airplanes, then be sure to check thin wall because it is a single-sided polygon. The matte options is for holdout, so you can matte one object from the other, so you get proper alpha matting. What is an advanced? Oh, you can actually generate caustics, which are not the caustics you would think of. It's mostly like reflection caustics, which are very diffuse and blurred, so it's not really crisp, sharp caustics because Arnold is not a bidirectional path tracer, and you would need that to create good looking caustics. Internal reflections is mostly for if you've got like glass objects where you can see through it and you want to see the reflections inside it. It is very expensive, but it is good looking. So you can turn it off if you want fast renders, but it breaks physicality. And the rest is not too important. This is default Maya tabs. So this was the introduction, and now let's start playing around with those values. So let's start the IPR session. And this is what I currently get with the default light setup and the default shaders without any settings applied to them. So what I always tend to do is for the objects is to disable the specularity just for the start of it, and then make sure to from there to slowly progress. So currently I'm just disabling the specular weights on the shaders, which is just for me to see what the light is contributing to. Or what you can do, you could also go to the debug toolbar and choose lighting, and then you see a raw lighting pass as well. But that's nothing new. So the first thing I want to do is like, let's create I think a plastic shader. So the AI material is, you can see what it's assigned to. Everything which is black now has got this material assignment. So before we start, actually, sorry, let's just remove all the diffuse colors for all the other shaders, so we just see with what we are working with. Okay, this guy needs no spec. I think all the others have spec still as well. Okay, don't crash on me. So let's work with the AI material. So everything which is now white will be the new shader. So the first thing is what we want to do is create a base color, which is the albedo color, which is your diffuse albedo, which should show up in your diffuse AUVs as well. So let's create I don't know, maybe a navy green, something like that, like a toy soldier. Let's just see what we can play with. Let's check value. So I'm just dialing in the colors now. Maybe a bit more yellowish. Yeah. Okay, let's say this is my color. Now I want to add some specularity to that. So all you got to do is increase the weight and you get directly specularity on top of that. And the new shader has GGX built in, so there's no way to choose. You don't have the option to choose specularity BXDFs. So you just have the roughness, and that's it. And it is automatically a GGX interpolation. So GGX means it's like a softer tail and fall off of the specular glints. So it depends now what plastic you have. You either have a very rough one with a coating on top, or you just have a rough one, or whatever you want to do is you can control it with that. So the question now is, when do you use specular and when do you use the coating? So I'm not exactly entirely sure when to use what, but if you want to have a clear coat on top of everything, you can just enable it here and you get kind of the same result as just the specularity. And I think for dielectrics, it doesn't really matter which one you use. And if you use both, you kind of get like a metallic sheen effect. So you have like a softer base reflection and then a really crisp coating layer. So this is more creative and you can work with that if you want to. But it's mostly experimental, I guess, if you want to test it or not. So for a simple plastic, you should just use one layer, either spec or coating, and then you can work with the roughness values. And obviously, this is looking really basic because I don't have any maps connected to the roughness, but this is what you would get. And if you want to use subsurface scattering, which plastics actually have because some light is penetrating through the surface, you can just simply enable that. You can use a mixture, so you get some diffuse and some subsurface scattering to get but it's up to you. Mostly it's on or off. So if it's on completely, I'm pretty sure that the base is ignored. So let's just copy the color over. So that should give us now the same result. And now we have SSS enabled as well. So depending on the scale, you should see at some point that you get subsurface scattering happening. Yeah, let's just disable the specularity. And it's you can see that these edges get a bit, but you need to add a SSS color actually to see something happening. And now you can see if I change a brighter color, you should see some effect happening, and you directly see that it is getting really soft. And also on the edges, you see this color bleeding. And it's also scene scale dependent. So be sure to have a proper scene scale so everything works out and you get the expected results. So this is now SSS on top of my object. It might be now a bit too strong, so you can either dial down the base color so you don't see that strong of an effect, which I like to do. So the brighter the color, the more light is scattering through because it's just absorbing more and internally reflecting it. So let's bring back the spec. And now this is what we currently have. I like to render just smaller portions, so it's faster. Yeah, so this is a SSS material now instead of just a plastic, but it goes hand in hand as I just suggested. So this would be the first material, and let's select this object, which is a metal. So let's say we want to create a basic, simple chrome shader. And chrome is pure reflection almost. So what you want to do is you want to create the base weight of 1, which is now different than the AL surface, because in AL surface for metals you would have no diffuse color. But this is not a diffuse layer, it is a base layer. So there is also the difference. So when you want to create chrome, it is important to have a weight of 1 and then increase the metalness to 1, and you get a pure reflection. So if this would be off, this would not be a metal reflection. It would be just a regular dielectric response curve. So this is now fully reflective chrome with a roughness of 0.1. And as you can see, it is behaving as expected. Everything is shiny and reflecting as chrome would do. So, but what if you want to create gold or something similar to that? So metals have a base reflectivity and they have an edge tint. And you would wonder, where are those attributes in this new shader? On the documentation, you can actually see how to plug it in, and you can actually see the color values which are needed. So if you scroll down somewhere, I thought there is this option. Maybe it's just there. Let's see. Where is it? Base? Yeah, it's in base. So if you want to create this material, for instance, what you would do is you use these two values. So you've got the base color and you got your specular color. And I'm not really sure why it's called that. I think it's just for ease of use in the attribute editor. But in the AL surface, this would be called reflectivity, and this would be edge tint if you want to create a metal shader. So let's say I want to create nickel. So what you want to do is enter these values, or let's just create gold. So I just minimize this tab and make sure it is on top of my Maya view. So let's try that again. Is that not working? There we go. So the base color, let's just enter those values rather quick. So this is red is 0.944, then we have 0.776 and 0.337. 373, I guess. Yeah. So this would be the base color. And then we also have the specular color. And the spec color is the next one, these values here. So they are almost white, but it's not entirely white. So 998, 981, and 751. So this would be the gold settings. specular colors to 1. And this is how it's currently looking like in this environment. I don't have any HDRIs, so I can't really reflect anything. That's why it looks rather dull and not like proper gold looking. But if I increase the roughness, you should see a bit more of the metal to it. Let's just make sure that everything is set up properly. Subsurface is off, coating is off. Yeah, so let's just head over to my perspective camera. And you can see now this is the same guy with the gold shader applied. And you can see that I don't have anything reflecting in the environment. And for metals to work, they need to have something shiny to reflect it. So, but well, this is just introductory and not a proper shading tutorial. So this is just showing you how to create a metal shader. And obviously you have the roughness. So if you want really crisp metals, you have almost no roughness. Let's say you want to create like a coated two-layer, like a two-layer metal like aiStandardSurface has. So to do that, I would use the coating as well. For instance, a golden iPhone, for instance, has this base color, this base metal reflection, and then I have like a clear coat on top. And let's try to mimic that. So let's just create a rough object, like a rough metal, like this. And maybe I just change my resolution quickly, just so we can zoom into the head region. There we go. So this is now the head gold object. And now I want to introduce more roughness, so we get a pretty flat looking shader, almost diffuse like. And maybe we want to reduce the color a bit so it's not so shiny. Maybe like this. And then we introduce a coating layer, which is a clear coat on top of that. And let's just jump to perspective and see if we can actually see it working. Yeah, it's actually hard to see anything because I don't have an environment. But it should actually do something. And you can see when I increase the roughness, something is happening. And if I make the base roughness stronger, you can see that you still get these sharper reflections. And if you bring up the IOR a bit more, you should even see a stronger reflection on everything. So the IOR is the index of refraction for the coat layer. And if you want to create like a second metal coating, what you can do is you can go crazy with the IOR and you get a chrome layer on top as well. So this is now creating another metal layer on top. So the IOR of 100 is pure mirror reflection. But typically for a dielectric clear coat, you should have 1.5. Or for soap bubbles, for instance, you should use lower values like this. What else is there? So SSS we covered, coding we covered. Let's just go first back with the gold shader. And let's see what else we can do. Let's head over to the camera again and change the resolution back to 100. So what else do we have? We have these eyes, I think, the spheres, and they should be fairly simple. They should just be like spider eyes, kind of like black reflective spheres. Actually, that's all there is. So let's see what to do there. We don't want any base color. Maybe just a little bit of a color. Something like this, and you can see what's going on. Let's just zoom in a bit more. And now we want to introduce specularity. So you can see we get some pings already. I think it's still too gray. Yeah, that's better. So now you see that there is something happening. You get reflections, and it looks a bit creepy actually. So that was that. Let's see what else we have. I think we should have rubber here. Yeah, that's a rubber shader. So this should be like a tire material, nothing too crazy. So bringing back the color and making it very dark. these color sliders. There we go. Something like this. We introduce reflection, and then we increase the roughness, reduce the gain. Let's see what we got now. And this, okay. So I guess this is still too shiny, so let's bring down the IOR a bit. Okay, and this is now the pure reflection. And if you would have a nice tire profile with some bump map on top, you would see actually something pretty cool there. Okay, so that's what we got now. And let's work with those emissive lights. So what I have created is a set and like a selection set, and on that selection set I have added those attributes to control the lights. So let's just bring in intensity of the lights, and now you get some white lights on the object, and you can obviously then increase the exposure to get a stronger effect happening. And you can see the SSS is working as expected. Let's just resolve this, and it is very strong effect, but you see it's looking pretty cool. Let's just bring down the exposure a bit so it's not as strong. Maybe something like that looks pretty cool. Let's just head over to camera. Go back to 100%. Disable progressive refinement. And now we should actually see what we have so far. And if you want to create volumetrics, it's also pretty simple. You just go in the render globals, do the same procedure, just bring in the volume fog and render. That's actually all there is to it. And I think this is all I wanted to cover in this introductory tutorial, because I just wanted to show you the attributes in the new shader, what they kind of do. Oh, we did not cover glass, so let's just create a glass object as well quickly. Anyway, so this is now the object emitting light out of the spheres. We've got these spider eyes, and this is what we have so far. And now let's just quickly create glass, and I think I will just use the gold shader to convert it to glass. So important for glass is to have not black shadows, so you need to have transparent shadows. And to do that, it is important that you switch the object to be not non-opaque. So you select the shape node, go to Arnold, and then disable opaque slider. And you got to do that for all the objects. So I will just concentrate on this hand now, because I just want to show you how it looks. So select the shader, and then let's just remove all the fancy sliders here. No reflection, oh no roughness. So this would be now the reflection of the glass. And let's head over to transmission and bring that in. So now we have transmission, which is refraction. And this is all you have to do to quickly enable a glass. And I think they really optimized the speed of that, because it's really fast and it's resolving really quick. So let's see if we zoom in here what we got. So this is it. You can see it's actually it looks actually quite cool, because it's like bulging out the objects behind it. So all these settings, I did not really test them out, but this is, I guess, fog inside of the, like fog in the liquid. If you have like small particles in it, this would be that. The scattering, like muddy water, I think this is what you would do here. I'm not sure what the depth does, so let's quickly read up on the depth. So let's go to transmission and see what the depth does. Weight is obvious. Color, depth. Control the depth into the volume which the transmission color is increasing. The volume makes the volume thinner, which makes less absorption and scattering Select a scale factor. Oh yeah, so this is what's happening. It's a nice transmission depth effect. So you can see what's going on. If you increase the transmission depth, this is what is happening. And the scatter should be here. This is what it's doing. It's like creating particles in the liquid. So if I want to have like muddy water, let's just go to yellow, something like this. Was that correct? Transmission? Oh, it was a wrong channel. Here we go. So this is what it is doing. And if you don't want this strong effect, you should really subtly dial it in, because it's really strong effect. So now this would be a, I don't know, maybe a tinted plastic or like something inside it, definitely. And then you have anisotropy, which is like forward scattering and backward scattering. It's just a different interpretation of how the particles are being absorbed in it. And dispersion Abbey, or I'm not actually sure how it's pronounced, Abbey or Ab or something. This is, when you enable this, it is breaking the light photon into its wavelengths. So the reflection will look like a caustic pattern with like rainbow colors. It's good for if you want to have diamonds and stuff like that, reflections of diamonds and stuff like that. So let's see if it's actually like, yeah, exactly. There's a good example. So for glass, they have like a default value between 10 and 70. And you can actually see what's going on here. And I think the smaller the value, the stronger the effect. Does that make sense? Let's just test it out. So dispersion Abbey, yeah. So if it's a low value, it's a really strong effect. And you can see that it is really breaking up the light rays into its rainbow colors. And the higher the number, the less of an effect it has. And I think that the default value for glass is between 10 and 70, which is pretty broad. So let's just try 50. And this would be the effect for kind of some glass. But it's more expensive. So if you have a pretty reflective and glossy scene, I would not really use it unless you need it for the look and you need to get this breakup of colors. That is something you've got to do. And the new thing is the roughness is linked to the spec roughness. So if I increase the specular roughness, the transmission roughness is introduced as well. So the higher the spec roughness, the more the object is like frosted. So these two go hand in hand for physical, for keeping it physical. But if you want to create or have sharp reflections like this, and you want to still have roughness, you have this extra roughness slider at the bottom. So you can have actually clean reflections, I think. Does it look like that? Let's just compare. If we actually have a angle where we see something reflected. Let's just check the camera. I'm not sure if this is the floor reflection, is it? Let's just disable that quickly and just see. Well, it's hard to see, but let's just see if this reflection is being blurred when I change the transmission roughness. You don't see it anymore. But I think this is just contributing to the transmission roughness. So you can have actually frosted glass, but then a clear coat on top. If you really want it, again, you can introduce coating, and now you get the proper clear coat on top of the glass, which is a frosted glass with a clear coat. I'm not sure if it does exist, but I guess so. And those fireflies are coming from my mesh lights, so don't worry about that. Dispersion, so we covered that. I think we are now through. I did not go into depth of subsurface scattering. It was just the basics. Obviously, the principles are the same. I just wanted to show you how to quickly create those materials. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in, and be sure to check out my channel. I will be uploading a few more tutorials during the next couple of weeks, which are all about Arnold 5, more advanced tutorials about shading, and also I will show you in the next tutorial the Surface app, how to use those shaders inside the app I have written, which go into the shader, and I want to show you how to set it up. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in, and always keep running and ask questions. If you like this video, thumbs up. Thank you guys. Bye.